Harriet. She had several names: Harriet, Thelma, Feinstein, Mosesen, Baskin. But what she really loved being called and referred to was daughter, sister, niece, cousin, aunt, mother, grandmother, and most recently, oh my goodness, great-grandmother. She lived in 16 different places during her lifetime, and it's a lot of places. She had a beautifully trained voice as an opera singer, which she never got to pursue professionally, but her sister did. She always sang at community events and so on and so forth. She was working the switchboard at the 92nd Street Y in New York when she met my father, and she was a librarian, a medical records librarian, and she loved word games, Scrabble, Jeopardy. She was very unhappy when they changed cable carriers in her nursing home and she could no longer watch Jeopardy. She was very upset at that. She was a lifelong Zionist, I mean, since before she was born, because her parents met at the Young Judea group that my grandfather was leading, and she was a very proud Zionist and a proud Jew, and I'm a little bit grateful that since last October she really wasn't able to follow the news and she didn't know what had happened, because it would have made her extremely sad. She was also an unsung hero of the civil rights movement here in the United States. When we lived in Georgia from 58 to 62, she and my father became involved in the civil rights movement because they found that segregation was not, they grew up in the Northeast, was not what they thought it was, which is you sit on that side of the room, you sit on that side of the room, otherwise everything is the same. No, they discovered how wrong that was and felt that particularly as Jews, they needed to stand up for other people and stand up for what was right. I once asked my father, after something particularly scary happened, why are you doing this? And he said, because we're Jews and we have to. You can't stand by and watch somebody being oppressed. You have to, and say, oh, that's terrible, somebody should do something about that. You have to actually get out there and try and do. And he reminded me of the quote from the Torah's Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdaf, justice, justice you shall pursue. He said, now, it doesn't say you shall obtain, because sometimes you can't obtain it, but you got to try. And she was just an amazing person, an amazing mom. She was very brave. She did a lot of stuff with the civil rights movement that, was very scary. When I look back at it later, I realized how scary. It was scary enough for us as kids. I don't know if you remember, Rich, but there was a night when my father had decided to go to a conference in New York, and a couple hours after he left, we got a phone call. It said, I know you have small children, and I don't think you'd want them hurt, so if you're smart, you'll get out of your house tonight. And she spoke with some people in the movement, and they said, you can let them win once in a while. Just find a place to stay and turn all your lights out and don't make a fuss. Because they just, so we did, but we had a friend down the block, and we stayed, and I sat up with her for hours watching 3 cars of guys drive around with rifle barrels sticking out of the windows. And they would drive by, stop in front of the house, shine flashlights at it, look, turn around, keep going. And they did that for hours. And then they pounded across into the lawn with a note that said, you were smart. Next time may not be so lucky. So that kind of sums everybody up. I thank you all for coming today. I do want to read one thing that I found a while ago that I really like. It won't be too much longer. It's entitled, Gone from My Sight. I am standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the moving breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She's an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until, at length, she hangs like a speck of white cloud just where the sea and sky come to mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, There, she's gone. Gone where? Gone from my sight. That is all. She is just as large in mast, hull, and spar as she was when she left my side, and she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone says, there, she's gone, there are other eyes watching her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, here she comes. And that is dying. Thank you.
Sharon and I did not coordinate themes beforehand.
No, we didn't. Are we similar?
I have a cousin there. When I was younger and traveled a lot for work, whenever I'd tell Mom where I was heading, she would invariably say, I have a cousin there, and give me a name and phone number and ask me to please give them a call. Sometimes I actually did. If Mom didn't know of a cousin in a particular city, she had me searching phone books for various surnames related to our extended family. Anybody remember phone books?
Long list.
When Mom was growing up here in Philly, her parents lived very close to her dad's brothers and sisters, all in the same neighborhood. The cousins would all play together, cementing bonds that lasted their whole lives. To Mom, family was at the top of her long list of very important people and things. Helping other people was always near the top, from joining sit-ins in Georgia lunch counters in the 1960s to working with her second husband, Mo, in Florida to help seniors navigate the maze of healthcare options that those of us of a certain age now get flooded with each year at this time. But family was always number one. That focus on family is what led to her interest in genealogy and her massive collection of documents and correspondence tracing the members and history of the Feinstein, Tankanagi, and Svilichovsky families, and how each member is related to the others. To Mom, every family member was and is a vital piece of a giant jigsaw puzzle that spans not only the world, but generations as well. The newest generation in our family was Mom's greatest love over the past year and a half, as technology allowed her to watch the growth and development of her great-granddaughter, Amelia. Emmy brought great joy to Mom's final days. In fact, the last good phone call I had with her a few weeks ago was a FaceTime call with Emmy running around her house, showing her all sorts of things and ending with a big kiss to the phone. Mom was overjoyed and kept telling the nursing home staff member who was with her, "That's my great-granddaughter. Isn't she amazing?" Emmy is amazing, of course. That's a totally objective view as her grandfather. And she already has, at age 20 months, a very strong sense of the importance of family. It must be in the genes. Mom will be greatly missed by all of us, but will live on in our hearts. Her memory is truly a blessing to everyone whose lives she touched, including all those cousins in every corner of the world.
Let's hear from Daniel.
Yeah, you can go ahead and put yourself off mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is the sound okay? I'm in an echoey room.
Yes.
We can tell.
It's as good as it's going to get.
All right, thank you. So, this goes along with what others we're not coordinating, I promise. I'll just remember her as the biggest and best personality ever. Just totally unstoppable force. Even at her 100th birthday in Florida, she was mostly with it, extremely quick-witted, happy to see everyone, including her friends from all backgrounds at the nursing home. I understand that she gave her the nickname Abuela Harriet over the past few years, which kind of says it all. I also remember visiting her and Mom and Grandpa in when I was in college, and being completely worn out by the end of the trip as a 21-year-old, while they got up very, very early in the morning in their early 80s and went out to educate other seniors on Medicare options. I needed a vacation from my vacation after that. heart surgery in like 2007 or so. We had this big get together in, I think, Philly. And she comes out after a major surgery with many complications and nearly dying, and seems just completely present and in charge, and as if nothing has happened. And that, I mean, I'm just amazed by the sheer number of near-death experiences, the number of times she almost died over the past 20 plus years, and then bounced right back and went on living and remained herself to the end. My dad told me a couple of weeks ago when she clearly wasn't doing well. Sharon said the Shema to her on Zoom, and she waved her off. So now Rachel and I are obliged to live 150 years at a minimum. So we'll get on that. Her attitude is remarkable and something to emulate, although that's pretty tall order. When I look at the state of the world, as Sharon alluded to, her life is such a remarkable piece of Jewish history and such a victory. I mean, she got through the 20th century, lived to be 101, met her great-granddaughter, and passed peacefully in her sleep, just sort of snuck out. Also, I don't know what to think about the afterlife, but if there's anyone where the idea of passing on feels right, it's her. You know, in Star Wars, Yoda says, "Don't mourn for those who transform into the Force." I don't know about not mourning, but transforming into the Force, yes. I can't imagine a personality that electric ever being truly gone. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you.
We're going to hear from some words of wisdom